I'm Richard Clarke. I record these talks every day as a way to deepen my inquiry. Listen each day and deepen your own practice. Welcome! I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Today is from Talk 575, Part 2. Questioner: So then, all these, desire, anger, etc., have their root in ignorance. Maharshi: Quite so. Ignorance gives rise to error, error to conceit, etc. What is ignorance? Can it be of pure Brahman, which is only the self or pure knowledge? Only let the questioner know his own self, that is, be the knowledge. This question will not arise. Because of ignorance, he raises the question. Such ignorance is of the questioner and not of the self. The sun seen, no darkness persists. There is hoarded wealth in an iron safe. The man says it is his own. The safe does not say so. It is the ownership conceit that is responsible for this claim. Nothing is independent of the self, not even ignorance. For ignorance is only the power of the self, remaining there without affecting it. However, it affects the I conceit, that is, the jiva. Therefore, ignorance is of the jiva. How? The man says, I do not know myself. Are there then two selves, one the subject and the other the object? He cannot admit it. Is then ignorance at an end for him? No. The rise of the ego is itself the ignorance, and nothing more. The questioner asks if desire, anger, and similar tendencies have their root in ignorance. Sri Ramana Maharshi affirms this, explaining that ignorance gives rise to error, then leads to conceit and other manifestations of the ego. He invites the questioner to examine the nature of ignorance more deeply, asking, what is ignorance? Can ignorance exist in the self, which is pure knowledge and pure being? The answer is no. Ignorance belongs not to the self, but to the individual who mistakenly identifies as separate from the self. The Maharshi points out that the question itself arises only because the questioner remains unaware of their true nature. When the self is realized, questions about ignorance, desire, and anger dissolve, much like darkness disappears when the sun rises. Ignorance is nothing more than the power of the self, Maya, operating without disturbing the self's absolute purity. However, this power appears to affect the individual ego or jiva, which identifies with the body and mind. To clarify, Ramana uses an example of a man claiming ownership over the wealth locked in a safe. The safe does not proclaim ownership. It is the man's ego or I conceit that asserts possession. Similarly, ignorance does not exist independently. It is tied to the ego, which creates the illusion of separation from the self. The Maharshi then challenges the questioner to reflect on their own experience. When someone says, I do not know myself, they imply a division between two selves, one that knows and one that is unknown. But such a division is absurd because the self is indivisible. The very act of claiming, I do not know myself, is the ego in action, and this statement is itself ignorance. Ultimately, Ramana Maharshi reveals that ignorance is not a thing in itself. It is simply the rise of the ego, the false sense of individuality that veils the self. The solution is not to analyze ignorance, but to recognize that the self was never affected by it. When you realize the self, the illusion of ignorance vanishes, just as sunlight effortlessly dispels darkness. So know yourself and be always free and at peace. In 40 Verses on Reality, Ramana Maharshi explains the nature of the self, the ultimate reality, and self-inquiry. My new book, with my comments and inquiry questions, opens these teachings up and brings them into your practice and experience. Available now from Amazon. Link in the video description. These videos bring Ramana's teachings into your direct experience. Click subscribe to see more. Click thumbs up to like, and send questions and start a dialogue with a comment.